Greetings, Caner Universe. It's Caner Tip Tuesday. Today, we are looking at a topic by request, and that is we are covering the top 3 cane locks. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, stick around and stick to the very end. Before we do that, a warm welcome always to those who are here for the first time, and as well as those who are faithful followers of the Cane Fist Way. 2 things to do straight off the bat. I always remind you, if you like the content, hit the subscribe button now so that you don't miss any future content and alerts, and avail yourself of the #1 no-cost resource. Get on that cane clarity call. Text the letter CCC to 305-745-7839 so we can have a conversation, listen to what's important to you, answer all your questions that you may have regarding canes, cane self-defense, the cane culture in general, so that you have a plan to really take your caning. It doesn't matter to me, if you're brand new, beginner especially, that's what you want to do. Get educated so that you don't waste time and funds, and it's going to save you a ton of frustration. So listen, the cane is an impact tool, and when we look at defenses, the majority of the defenses, rightfully so, revolve around striking, and that's great. It would be phenomenal if we could always keep individuals within that striking range, or what ACSD refers to as the power shot range. However, combat is dynamic. Life is what it is. We make mistakes, and before you know it, in close quarters, if somebody either puts their hands on that cane or takes a hold of you, now you're not that striking range. You may not be able to go in there, so not as effective as if you have. You're going to need additional cane skills in the way of cane locks. When it comes to cane locks, a lot of limited information on that, but there's essentially 2 types. There are those that focus on the joint itself, and there's another way of locking, which is essentially a compression lock. Let me explain. As a matter of fact, let me just give you 3 examples of how to do that. One of the more useful ones is going to come. If you're coming here, there's 2 ways of looking at this. I'm here and I go to strike and he moves in. And now from here, I'm stuck, I'm fighting here. He may even let go of this arm to go ahead and strike, and now I'm gonna need something else, right, to go in there. So the first one is a motion that goes, if this is clockwise, I'm facing away from you, this is clockwise, the movement is going to go counterclockwise to the inside here, right? So it's this type of motion that's coming to the inside. If I go to do that, there's that lock. And the reason that works the way that it does, I call this, it's an L lock or an S, depending on how you look at it, is because when you come in here, I'm trapping this hand. I can also go ahead, pull that other hand back, and see, he can't really come back to strike me. Now, he can pull out of there, but that's where I come in. Now, look at how it's aligned to strike him. I call it commutative lock. It's locking all the way up, right through back, and it's towards his center or his umbilicus. And I'm also at an angle where there's not much he can do. I like to keep it to where his head goes below the waist, simply because it throws off the biomechanics. And it's such a simple movement to do. When you do it from stationary, if he goes here to grab that wrist, he comes out here. I go to move and strike. I can do it 2 ways. Either I can do it straight from here, just from coming over. That compresses. If I come over all the way, he's throwing a shot and I catch it there. This is going to lock him up. As a matter of fact, it's so subtle. I want you to squeeze. The more he wants to grab, see, you don't see much movement out of me. When he lets go here, see how that, I can finish off the strike from there. The compression is simply, this is an example, right? So if he puts both hands on me and he's grabbed me lapels, he's choking me, he's doing anything, and I come up here, give him a little love tap over here. When I come in, it's not that it's locking the wrist, it's that the impact tool is compressing on bone, and so you get that. Now, can he be so jacked up on adrenaline that he doesn't fit? Yes, absolutely, and he's not cooperative, and he's still going, and so on and so forth. So the more you go up here, the more he's going to feel that. The one that I want to show you, because it's called the top 3, is when they close the gap in here and he somehow gets through. Now, you're going down, right? If you don't sprawl, and that would be the first thing, could you tilt that camera just slightly so that we can take a look at? Somehow, right, you weren't looking, I'm talking here, and here he comes. I gotta be trained to sprawl out the legs so that he doesn't grab both. If he takes one, but notice where I put my cane. Here I'm gonna compression lock. That's an example of a compression lock. Notice that I have to be super gentle. Now I can go two ways with this. I can go forward, see what my forearm does, and he will go down from this. That gives me the advantage there. Or I can turn the other way. The bottom line is, wherever I go, the body has to follow. That is a compression type of lock. It's not necessarily working on a joint. If I can go one way here, counterclockwise, I can do the same thing and go the other way, and that'll give me a lock there as well. So now if I'm coming here and he stops that, this is not the end of the world, right? I can just stop that here. Now, for those of you that are wondering, I'm using an ACB 32. That palm rest, which becomes that personal protection extent, that comes in handy when I dig it in here. But keep in mind, these applications came to be way before we had anything like this, so it works either way, but this is going to give you that added advantage of coming in. Again, it's to that midline, and it's bringing it to. Likewise, similar to when I'm going counter-clockwise, when I'm done here and I step through, it puts me in a position that I can strike. In other words, I can control, because that's the whole idea. I prefer not to have to strike him, but if he insists, it's almost like he's doing it to himself, type of thing. The reason both of those are so important, I consider them just so fundamental to locking, is because if he were to take the cane itself, both of these, see his hands are on the cane, now with the horn up, both of these can be applied in that situation either way. That's why I feel they're so effective. It looks simple, and it is, but you have to have certain components, right, that I'm not really giving you that kind of detail there. I'm giving you the overall picture of this, but if these components are off, then it's not as effective. Stay right where you are, and I'll give you an example of what I mean, what I mean by that. Grab on. So once I'm out here and away from his center, I can force this, but he can start getting up, and if he's really strong, I don't want to have to deal with that. Now, I'm not going to exert any more pressure. Stay where you are. I'm just going to start aligning with his center, and that automatically starts happening. So there's some there that may not be, unless we point it out, you may not see it. All of these can as well be done empty hand. That's just the ACSD way of doing that, and that is that if he's coming over here, right, anything that I do where he stops me in exactly the same way, well, I can lock to the midline there. It's the same motion. I come over here, he grabs for whatever reason. Same thing to the outside. I come over here to stab, same thing. So it's very useful in that sense. If you're wondering how we do the compressions, well, compressions can be done anywhere where he's over here. That locks as well, right? I'm using something that's blunt, but when he comes over here, I use my thumb knuckle. The thumb knuckle resembles that personal protection. See that? When he comes in here and I sprawl, I'm going to drive that right into the temporal region and rub in there. And so that's the next best thing. You might have another tool that can serve the purpose. Here's one of the things that I don't want you to miss, and that is that ACSD, why does it work and lend itself so well to solo training? Don't miss this. And that is because it is a movement-based art. If you take both of those movements, this counterclockwise is the first portion of that figure 8. Those in ACSD know it as a 1 and a 5 coming down, which are extensions. If you look at it, if I take here, I'm going to exaggerate the movement so you see it, this big downward movement, cutting movement, this big, I'm going to exaggerate this, make it big so you can see this figure 8 movement. But everything that you see when you see an ACSD caner handling, they should be able to explain to you, especially the coaches, what is it that movement represents and why are they doing it? Because they're not just doing it to look cool. All right. So listen, with that in mind, it's still early in 2022. The question is, are you going to get cane trained? We can sit and talk about this all day long. We can talk about canes. That's a fun conversation. But the real equalizer is, will you get cane trained in 2022? And I don't care what cane you're hanging around with, right? Whether it be wood, it be metal, whatever the case may be, the real equalizer is the training. You're going to be limited what you can do in a self-protection situation, self-defense situation, by what your training allows. To that end, let's have a conversation about it. Text those letters, CCC for Cane Clarity. Call to 305-745-7839. We love talking to you at the headquarters, 800-289-8188. Let's get this thing done, and you're gonna find that it's also enjoyable. Why? Because you see the feedback on results. I'm Joe Robaina for American Cane Self-Defense. Keep caning, stay safe.